there's ways to where you can get a little more creative with it too. Like and they're 100%. Normally, yes, that would cost me $2,000 a month, 3,000, 4,000 on retainer, whatever. They agreed to work 100% based on commission. So now it's saving me my lead gen time, and it's costing me nothing until we actually generate those leads. So not every single bit of outsourcing actually costs you that money up front. Even there's ways to outsource and pay for it after they've gotten the results. So just something for, anyone considering outsourcing, there's keep in mind to say there are people out there willing to work on purely commission. So it's saves you that time of scraping data off LinkedIn and doing
absolutely
super fun stuff.
So another really perfect segue, because earlier in our conversation, you mentioned that some of the brands you worked with were $100 million brands, and your company has been around for about an hour and a half now. You haven't been doing this for years. So it begs the question, and I knew I wanted to come back to this, so I'm glad that you set me up with such a beautiful segue, and no, we didn't rehearse that. How did you get those customers? How do you get your customers? Because in the beginning, maybe your uncle or there's somebody who knows you somewhere, but eventually that list runs out, and you've got to go out into the real world of strangers and ask them for money. So walk us through a little bit, Justin, of what that looks like for you.
Yeah. So most people don't believe me when I say this, but I mean, we built the business with zero outbound strategy. So no paid ads, no cold emailing initially, no sales calls, any of that. So I initially had built the business purely off referrals and kind of just organically getting my name out there and getting inbound. And to elaborate a little further on that.
How specifically did you get your name out there organically? That's what people want to know.
Yeah. Exactly. So I have been a part of a couple of Facebook groups. One of the biggest ones that I love, and it'll be in the link after this episode if you check out my bio. It's called Trends by the Hustle. So Trends has been an absolute game changer just for our business, getting to know people. But I am in there adding value anytime somebody asks about systems, anytime somebody asks about personal finance, anytime someone asks about video for e-commerce companies specifically. And that third one is kind of the dinger when it comes to getting leads. I've, from that group alone, probably built half of my business off of, organic referrals that started with somebody from Trends and then turned into another introduction that turned into another introduction. And, now my CRM is almost exclusively full of inbound leads. So being active in a group like Trends, being active on Reddit, being active on Twitter, even, specifically finding these big e-commerce companies, targeting the places that their CMOs might hang out, that their CEOs would hang out. So, Trends or other Facebook groups have a lot of big decision makers in those. It's, these paid communities, these paid masterminds, joining those, spending $4,000 or $5,000 to go to a conference where you're in the same room as CEOs and CMOs of these, very large brands, and just putting your name out there. Hey, I'm Justin Kelsey with Vaxa Digital. We make scroll stopping videos for e-commerce brands. That alone has been the biggest driver of our business. And through those organic kind of relationships and relationships, I know it sounds cliche, are really the key to building a business. It's how many people do you know, and more importantly, what is the quality of those relationships that you have. But once people started to know me as, hey, this is the guy that makes really good e-commerce ad videos, it became pretty easy for these referrals to start spreading. Now specifically, we have a affiliate program built out as well, so we pay out 10% of anyone who sends business our ways. And I think that's huge for anyone in the agency world out there, anyone really running a service business, having a strict affiliate structure built out that can literally change your business. That alone, we probably get half our leads now. So
let me interrupt you with some questions, because I'm in the same Trends group as you are, and I know that I'm not leveraging it really at all, to be honest with you. So for the folks who aren't familiar with, there's a company called The Hustle. They've got this Facebook group. I don't even remember what we paid, like a couple $100 a year to be in this thing. Like, it's not super expensive.
$400 a year, maybe,
something like that.
I mean, it's a secondary benefit to the actual website and case studies itself. So a lot of value there.
So when you first joined the Facebook group, did you I want to know how much time and how you allocated that time. Did you just sit there and like look for every single post that you could write intelligent answers to? Did you turn on notifications for every new post so you were seeing like every time a new post? Because it can be really, really time consuming. So and that's why I don't do it. I feel like, oh man, I'm forever reading and writing and reading and writing. And is anything going to come of this? And whereas I could do other things that I know I'm going to get a result from. So I don't spend the time that I probably should in the Trends Facebook group. So give us more meat on that bone.
Yeah. So I joined Trends December 2018. So I was one of the first 50 people in Trends. Did it as a beta test, got in early access, which was awesome. I've known Sam for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now. I went to the very first HustleCon. So he was like, "Oh, you got to come try this new Trends thing." So for a while, I was just kind of a watcher. I sat in the Trends group. Yes, there'd be some good engagement, but there was only like 100, 200 members. And then it really slowly started to creep up. And then, there's some good conversations around starting businesses, but nothing quite applicable to me. And again, this was before I'd even launched Vaxa. So come January 2020, believe it or not, I actually launched Vaxa through Trends. Like Trends was the thing that launched Vaxa. I made a single post in Trends and I was like, "Hey guys, my name's Justin. I'm really wanting to get into creating e-commerce video ads for e-commerce brands. I would love if there are 10 brands in this group that would come trial our services. I'll give you 90% off our normal rates if you come, tell us if our systems work." And it was a way to test my systems again. So basically I did 10 super cheap. I think we charge like $200 a video, which is about a tenth of the rate on average that we charge now per video. And I got 40 leads off of that single post alone. So that obviously became our first initial client base. A lot of those we resold onto our retainer clients. But
so when you, sorry to interrupt you, when you'd made that post, had you already answered questions on a lot of other people's posts? And did that post not get flagged because you and Sam, you kind of knew Sam and he was going to let that one fly? Because it's kind of like a pitch, which is a little bit in the violation of the TOS of the group.
It was, but this was the days before things were regulated as much as well. So I believe I did run it by Sam previously. So I was like, "Hey, Sam, I'm curious, could I post this in the group?" Initially, actually, my goal was to do it for free. I was like, "Hey, I'm going to make 10 free videos for Trends members as a way of kind of giving back." He was like, "You got to charge for this. Like, you're giving them value, like charge something, $200." I was like, "All right, sure, I'll try it." So we got some initial, we produce those videos at a loss still, but now, it's a little bit different. There's so many people in Trends. There's like 7,000 or 8,000 members now, where if you posted something like that now, it's a little more spammy. Back then, it was pretty tight knit. I'd engaged with a lot of people. My name had popped up, so it didn't come across as quite as spammy. And then from that point forward, I really made it a habit to be a part of Trends. And to be honest, it was the only reason I logged onto Facebook was to be, a part of that group and engage in that conversation. And some of my best, business mentors and colleagues now have come as a result of Trends. But I literally would block off 15 to 20 minutes a day on my Google Calendar that was just go engage on Trends. And I'd read, the top posts from that day. I would do a couple searches for specific queries that I was looking for. If again, I wanted to look for things related to e-commerce related questions I could add value to. I did searches around video. Anytime anyone had a question around video advertising, video marketing, video editing, etc., was right there, front and center, adding value to kind of the question they were asking. So I never pitched anybody. I was never like, "Hey, come talk to us. We make videos." It was purely just like, "Hey, here's the answer to exactly what you were asking." Yeah. They would look at my profile. They'd send me a message. They'd ask more about what I did. And that was how we really generated a lot of our initial traction.
Are you still now? Earlier in our conversation, you talked about this new agency that does outbound for you on a commission basis that you're using. So are you no longer as focused on Trends simply because the group size is so big? It's not really as intimate. You can't really make posts like that anymore. Are you still getting business from Trends, or are you now more focused on the fact that you have to go out now that you've got some, client wins and some case studies and so forth? Are you more focused on outbound?
I'd say it's still a healthy mix of both. So I've still found that the leads that come from Trends are usually much higher quality because, again, I've been around the group for a while. I've been answering questions in there for a while. I've been featured, I think, 3 times now in Trends articles or like emails now. So people kind of know my name in the group a little bit. So usually when I have a conversation with somebody who's a Trends member, it's not just like a cold email or cold pitch in their DMs, or like my agency's kind of doing for me. It's like, hey, they already know that I have, that I kind of know what I'm doing. So when I do finally go in for the kill and I pitch them and I'm like, hey, here's our cost. It's going to be expensive, but it's going to have this, 20x ROI associated with it. They, believe that I'm not BSing them versus, some random company overseas that maybe we've never worked with that didn't know my name. We can tell them, hey, we're going to make you a 20x return minimum on a video we make for you guys. But they're going to be like, okay, well, how do we know you're not making that up? Versus, a lot of Trends members and people in kind of my inner circle, they can see the case studies. They've seen me talk about it. So it tends to be still, higher quality. But that being said, Facebook groups in general, such as Trends, they are getting more saturated. There are people in there, pitching themselves, 5-10 times a day. There's, tons of other creative agencies and Trends alone kind of doing the same thing we're doing. So I think that the only reason we're still getting value out of that is because, again, I've kind of built that rapport within the group, and a couple other groups and group texts and masterminds that I'm a part of as well. But Trends is just an example of kind of one of those. But I think there's still a lot of value there. Yes, cold email is great. And, we still have closed a good bit of business from that, but it's definitely not the same as kind of going through a group of people that already know your name.
Are you doing much in terms of ads or content marketing?
Zero, to be honest. It's definitely something I've had in the backlog. I've posted a couple blog posts on our website. I still write a lot on Medium personally. Like I love to write. So I'll do a lot of just like thought leadership type articles. If you want to consider that content marketing, but, no ad spend to this day. Like we haven't spent a single dollar on paid search, display, paid social. Definitely something I've thought about, but again, we haven't really needed to hit our goals. Probably going to when we try to get to the next level. Obviously, I know a lot of awesome paid social agencies now, given that we work with so many of them as partners. But it's definitely a big lever. I just haven't had the time to like sit down and again build a system around it to make sure we're getting the most value out of it.